Good day everyone, I am Chanda Angel Elyabanas, your first discussant, and we will be talking about the digital self. But before we continue, here are the learning outcomes. At the end of the discussion, you are expected to define online identity, compare real identity versus online identity, describe the influence of internet on this sexuality and gender. Lastly, discuss the proper way of demonstrating values and attitudes online. Proceeding with the discussion, how many of the world's population own cell phones and why? According to the December 2022 mobile user statistics, latest data reveal that more than two-thirds of the world's population now use a mobile phone. The number of smartphone users reaching 6.64 billion and adding people that own a feature phone makes it 7.26 billion, making up 90.72% of the world's population. Now, the rising number is normal because of the new digital technologies offered. Along with this, people are now capable to assume different identities online. Now, what is the digital self? The digital self is the self that is constructed online. It is the evaluation by oneself of one's worth as an individual in distinction from one's interpersonal or social roles. It is the mask that we put on to draw in the innovative world. And with the internet, self-extension is extensive. Belonging can emblematically extend self. Sartre explained that the reason we want to have something is to enlarge our sense of self, and that the only way we can know who we are is by observing what we have. In other words, we value ourselves according to what we see that we own. Here we have the digital modification of the extended self. This was proposed by Russell Belk in 1988, which includes 5 concepts: dematerialization, re-embodiment, sharing, co-construction of self, and distributed memory. Dematerialization is the converting of physical possessions to digital ones. Example is that from having records or CDs, we now play music with digital storage devices and online streaming platforms. Second is re-embodiment, which is crafting of the new self online. Having avatars, photos, and videos that can be edited, first slightly changing our image on the online world. Then sharing, being able to share and have access to already shared information online. Next, we have the co-construction of self, where we construct the self with others. People are connected in a way through comments and messages, which can also affect our online persona. And lastly, distributed memory. Digital objects such as photos, videos, messages, and others that are a part of the extended self, which are able to provide a sense of past through their association with events and people in our lives. That is all for my topic. Thank you for listening, and let us listen to our next discussant.
Everyone, I'm Ria Mia M. Luterino, your second discussant for today, and I will discuss about selective presentation and impression management. So what is impression management? Impression management, also known as self-presentation, refers to the goal-directed conscious or unconscious attempt to influence the perception of other people about a person, object, or event by regulating and controlling information in social interaction. Generally, people undertake impression management to achieve goals that require they have a desired public image. This activity is called self-presentation. So what is self-presentation? In sociology and social psychology, self-presentation is the conscious or unconscious process through which people try to control the impression of other people form of them. The goal is for one to present themselves the way in which they would like to be thought of by the individual or group they are interacting with. In social interaction, according to Gupman is the first to develop specific theory concerning self-presentation and created the foundation and defining principle of what is commonly referred to as impression management. According to him, individuals participate in social interaction through performing a line or a pattern of verbal and nonverbal act by which he expresses his view of the situation and through this his evaluation of the participant, especially himself. He communicates this view through the conceit of chatter. Actors give different performances in front of different audiences, and the actors and the audience cooperate in negotiating and maintaining the definition of the situation. To Gupman, the self was not a fixed thing which reside within individuals, but a social process. For social interaction to go smoothly, every interactant needs to project a public identity that guides other behaviors. Such lines are created and maintained by both the performer and the audience. By enacting a line effectively, a person gains positive social value or face. The verbal intentional methods allow us to establish who we are and what we wish to directly communicate. We must use these methods for the majority of the actual communication of data. Impression management have techniques. So let's discover what are these techniques. We have suppressing emotion, maintaining self-control, which we will identify with such practices as speaking briefly and modestly. Second, conforming to situational norms. The performer follows agreed upon rules for behavior in the organization. Third, flattering others. The performer compliments the perceiver. These tactics work best when flattery is not extreme and when it involves a dimension important to the perceiver. Lastly is being consistent. The performer belief and behavior are consistent. There is agreement between the performer verbal and non-verbal behavior. So let's have self-presentation examples. Self-presentation can affect emotional experiences. For example, people can become socially anxious when they are motivated to make desired impression on others but doubt that they can do so successfully. People are anxious when they are uncertain about how to create a certain impression, such as when they do not know what sort of attributes the other person is likely to impress with. Think that they will not be able to project the type of image that will produce preferred reaction from others. Such people think that they will not be able to project the desired image strongly enough or believe that some event will happen that will repudiate their self-presentation, causing reputational damage. Psychologists have also studied impression management in the context of mental and physical health. Larry and Kowalski in 1990 say that there are two processes that constitute impression management, each of which operate according to different principles and are affected by different situations and dispositional aspects. The first of this process is impression motivation, and the second is impression construction. So let's proceed to the impression motivation. So according to Larry and Kowalski, there are three main factors that affect how much people are motivated to impression manage in a situation. First, how much people believe their public image are relevant to them attaining their desired goal. When people believe that their public image is relevant to them achieving their goals, they are generally more motivated to control how other people perceive them. Conversely, when the impression of other people have few implications on one outcomes, the person motivation to impression manage will be lower. This is why people are more likely to impression manage in their interaction with powerful high status people than those who are less powerful and have lower status. Second, how valuable the goals are. People are also more likely to impress and manage the more valuable goals for which their public impression are relevant. Third, how much of discrepancy there is between how they want to be perceived and how they believe others perceive them. People are more highly motivated to impression manage when there is a difference between how they want to be perceived and how they believe others perceive them. For example, public scandal and embarrassing events that convey undesirable impression can cause people to make self-presentational efforts to repair what they see as their damaged reputations. So, the second constitute process of impression management is impression construction. This features of social situation that people find themselves in as well as their own personality determine the nature of the impression that they try to convey. So there is sets of factors that are especially important in impression construction. First, the self-concept. The impression that people try to create are influenced not only by social context but also one's own self-concept. People usually want others to see them as how they really are, but this is a tension with the fact that people must deliberately manage their impression in order to be viewed accurately by others. People's self-concept can also constrain the image they try to convey. People are high in public self-consciousness have less congruency between their public and private selves than those lower in public self-consciousness. Second, desired identity. People desired and undesired selves, how they wish to be and not be on internal level, also influence the image they try to project. Sklinker, 1985, defined as desirable identity image as what a person would like to be and think he or she really can be, at least at his or her best. Third, target value. People tailor their self-presentation to the values of the individual whose perception they are concerned with. This may lead to people sometimes fabricating identities that they think others will value. However, more commonly people selectively present truthful aspects of themselves that they believe coincide with the values of other people, of the person they are targeting the impression to, and withhold information that they think others will value negatively. Fourth, role constraint. The content of people's self-presentations is affected by the roles that they take on and the norms of their social context. In general, people want to convey impression consistent with their roles and norms. Many roles can carry self-presentational requirements around the kinds of impression that the people who hold the roles should and should not convey. Fifth, and lastly, current or potential social image. People public image choices are also influenced by how they think they are perceived by others. As in impression motivation, self-presentational behavior can often be aimed at dispelling undesired impression that others hold about an individual. When people believe that others have or are likely to develop an undesirable impression of them, they will typically try to refute the negative impression by showing that they are different from how others believe them to be.
Multiple aspects of the self. Huygens argues that there are three domains of the self: the actual self, ideal self, and the ought self. Actual self refers to the attributes an individual possesses. Ideal self refers to the attributes an individual would ideally possess. Ought self refers to the attributes an individual ought to possess. According to Huygens, the discrepancies between the actual self and ideal self leads to feelings for dejection. Our sense of self helps organize our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Our overall self-evaluation influences our cognitive processes. For instance, when people with high self-evaluation fail, they sustain their self-worth by looking at others' failure. Impact of online interaction on self. Computer-mediated communication encompasses human communication involving several exchanges through various platforms such as text, audio, or video messages. A CMC interaction occurs through various types of networking technology and software, including email, internet relay chat, instant messaging, Usenet, and mailing list servers. An interesting discussion can stem from a comparison of how we construct it in the online world. As Dutton points out, that technology can work two ways: open or closed social choices. Individuals shape the impact of technology has on their lives by choosing which technology to use and how to use it.
Good day everyone, I'm Rufa May Murillo, the next discussant, and I will tackle about the two influence of internet on sexuality and gender. So the first one is the gender and sexuality online. According to Marwick 2013, the term sex, gender, and sexuality are often thought of as synonymous. They are actually quite distinct. The differences between the common understanding of these terms and how researchers think about them yield insights about the social functioning of gender. So the concept of online sexual activity implies one or more persons engaging in a sexually related behavior on the internet. However, it is different from offline sexual activities, which would most likely include a physical component. For example, solitary or partnered physical sexual stimulation. So let's move on to the definition of sex, gender, and sexuality. So sex is the biological state that corresponds to what we might call a man or a woman. While sex is often explained as biological, fixed, and immutable, it is actually socially constructed according to West and Zimmerman 1987. So, ang sex daw ay ang biological na estado na tumutugma sa kung ano ang maaari nating tawaging lalaki o isang babae. Ang sex ay madalas na ipinaliwanag bilang biological na naayos at hindi nababago. Ito ay aktwal na binuo ng lipunan. So, sex is either of the two main categories, male and female, into which humans and most other living things are divided on the basis of their reproductive functions. So next is the gender. Gender is the social understanding of how sex should be experienced and how sex manifests in behavior, personality, preferences, capabilities, and so forth. Gender refers to the characteristics of women, men, girls, and boys that are socially constructed. This includes norms, behaviors, and roles associated with being a woman, man, girl, or boy, as well as relationship with each other. As a social construct, gender varies from society to society and can change
over time. So next is the sexuality. Sexuality is an individual expression and understanding of desire. While like gender, this is often viewed as binary, homosexual or heterosexual. In reality, sexuality is often experienced as fluid. So when we say homosexual, it is the romantic attraction, sexual attraction, or sexual behavior between members of the same sex or gender. As a sexual orientation, homosexuality is an enduring pattern of emotional, romantic, and/or sexual attractions to people of the same sex, while heterosexual is the people that are sexually or romantically attracted to people of the opposite sex. Heterosexual men are sexually or romantically attracted to women, and heterosexual women are sexually or romantically attracted to men. So in other words, sexuality is about your sexual feelings, thoughts, attractions, and behaviors towards other people. The second influence of internet on sexuality and gender is the performing gender online. So gender performance is the idea that gender is something inscribed in daily practices, learned and performed based on cultural norms of femininity and masculinity. Such a concept goes against the predominant philosophical framework established since the 1970s, which assumes a sex and gender divide, where gender would be a cultural construct built upon a biological sex. The main point of the gender performance is that neither gender nor sex is completely natural, and both are performed and become naturalized over time. We act and walk and talk in ways that consolidate the idea of being a man or being a woman. According to Churi's Judith Butler, 1990 conceptualized gender as a performance. She argued that gender was performative in that it is produced through millions of individual actions rather than something that comes naturally to men and women. According to the disembodiment hypothesis, internet users are free to actively choose which gender or sexuality they are going to portray, with the possibility of creating alternate identities, according to Wynn and Katz, 1997.
My name is Mirabora Gatan from BS Ed 1A English, and I'm the last discussant in Group 4, and my topic is all about setting boundaries to your online self, smart sharing. So, when we say boundaries, it is the guidelines or limits of a person. So, as an adult, we should be responsible enough to establish limits for ourselves. Second, why we need boundaries for ourselves? Boundaries help you monitor your own behavior and create a healthy structure for your life. And when you set boundaries for yourself, you are saying, here's the line between what's okay for me and what's not. Boundaries has a reason why. And we set this boundary for ourselves because we love and respect ourselves. Boundaries keep us safe and healthy. They keep our lives running smoothly. Third, it's important to develop boundaries with people online so that we feel our physical and mental well-being are protected. Here are the following guidelines that will help you share information online in a smart way that will protect yourself and not harm others. So before sharing or posting anything online, we should consider the following. First, is this post or story necessary? Second, is there a real benefit to this post? Third, have we, as a family, parent, or child, resolved this issue? An issue that is still being worked out at home, or one that is either vulnerable or highly emotional, should not be made public. Fourth, is it appropriate? Does it stay within the boundaries of our family values? Fifth, will this seem as funny in 5, 10, or 15 years old? Or is this post better suited for sharing with a small group of family members or maybe not at all. According to New 2014, here are some additional guidelines for proper sharing of information and ethical use of internet. First, stick to safer sites. Second, guard your passwords. Third, limit what you share. Fourth, remember that anything you put online, post, or a site is there forever, and even if you try to delete it. Fifth, do not be mean or embarrass other people online. Sixth, always tell if you see strange or bad behavior online. 7. Be choosy about your online friends. And lastly, be patient.